I wore a suit to work and got my supervisor soft demoted. This Reddit post is from ZZ Del Marco. I'm posting mainly because I'm not a passive-aggressive type, and I'm in disbelief that this actually worked. Ever since I started my new job a few months ago, my supervisor, let's call him Josh, has been micromanaging me. When I'm the subject of criticism, which is often, I try to give him the benefit of the doubt and ask him to clarify. What are your expectations? What specifically should I have done differently? Josh's responses are always vague, something like, just do better. I even had a meeting with Josh in HR to address this, but nothing changed. Yesterday, Josh came to my desk to tell me I needed to dress better. Now, I work at a small company, and the vibe is unusually casual. A decent number of people come to work wearing jeans, hoodies, t-shirts, or even baseball caps. I've never worn a hat to work, and I always wear a button-up shirt with a collar. That day, I was wearing a long-sleeve button-up flannel, chino pants, and Adidas Gazelles. On other days, I wear loafers and tucked-in dress shirts. So I asked Josh to clarify. Do you want dress shoes, a dress shirt tucked in? What exactly should I change? He told me, I just need to dress better. And to talk to HR for clarification, so I did. I asked HR, what's the dress code? They gave the standard pants, closed shoes, no sleeveless shirts, and so on. I asked if anything I've worn has been a problem, and they said no, I'm fine. Because I was mad, and because all my past efforts to address problems with Josh went nowhere, I decided to be petty. The next day, I showed up to work in a full suit. It's one I wear to weddings, so it's fitted and I look sharp, wildly overdressed for the office, though. People kept coming to my desk to comment on it, and ask what the occasion was. If they asked, I told them I'd been told to dress better. Everyone responded with confusion. 2 people even said they liked how I normally dress. When they asked who said that, I told them, Josh. I figured I'd do this for a week to prove a point, and then go back to my usual clothes, but word got around fast. Later that day, the CEO, Josh's boss, came to my desk and told me I'd now be reporting to him directly. He said he'd be having a conversation with Josh about this and other issues. And because I was Josh's only direct report, he effectively went from being a supervisor to just another employee. I'm riding a bit of a high right now. I think I'll wear one of my flannels tomorrow. Honestly, props to this guy for being able to find a way to solve this problem without escalating anything. And in a very stylish way to boot. Hell, I mean, if I was in issues, I would have come back wearing military fatigues or airsoft gear or cosplay or really anything outlandish just to stick it in Josh's face some more. Can't freaking stand middlemen, worst freaking scum of the earth. Doesn't it just feel good knowing these busybodies make a lot more than you do? Props to Del Marco for putting one in his place. The next post is from Nogu2K. We don't pay extra time if it's under 15 minutes. Okay, I can make that work. I was a software engineer for a company that suddenly introduced electronic tracking for work hours. Before that, we just operate on good faith. If I worked 2 extra hours one day, I could come in 2 hours late the next day. No problem. With the new system, I had to clock in at 8 a.m. sharp or I'd lose the whole first hour. I had to clock out at 5 p.m. with 1 hour lunch. Now, in Brazil, where I live, labor laws say that if a company tracks your hours, they must pay you for all extra time over 40 hours a week. Sometimes I'd get in a little early, like at 7:50, or leave a bit later, like 5:10. But at the end of the first month, my extra hours were 0. I was surprised. I looked into the software and realized it ignores anything under 15 minutes per check-in. Pretty sure that's illegal, but whatever. I could work with it. From then on, I showed up 16 minutes early, came back from lunch 16 minutes early. If I had nothing to do, left 16 minutes late. Every day. At the end of the second month, management called me in. They were shocked I had over 3 times more extra hours than anyone else. I just said, check your system. I'm not the one tracking this. To my surprise, they actually paid me what I was owed. They didn't change the system. So I kept doing it for 3 months before I left for a remote job. Nog2's pretty lucky. I mean, it's awesome that he was able to Uno reverse an obvious exploit, but not every company would be happy with this kind of soft rebellion, and not every country's like Brazil with convenient labor laws. Always remember that there's usually no honor with corporations, and you've got to work the hours you want to work. Usually it's the bare minimum required for a full payment. Unless you desperately need the extra income, no amount of spare cash will substitute for your health. Post 3. The next post is from Obvious Secretary 151. Show up 30 minutes early. Sure, Dave, as long as you do too. I'm 15 and work as a soccer referee. Normally, I arrive 10 to 15 minutes early for games. That's plenty of time to check in players and inspect the field. One game, I showed up as an assistant referee. The center ref, 18 years old, we'll call him Dave, told me all refs need to arrive 30 minutes early. That's not true, but I stayed quiet. We reffed the game, no problem. Afterward, Dave told me he'd mark me as not showing up since I wasn't 30 minutes early. That meant I wouldn't get paid. I told him that rule didn't exist, but he just left. Here's the catch. If a center ref doesn't have ARs, they get paid about $5 more. I think that was Dave's plan, so I got revenge. I signed up to be the center ref for every game where Dave was an AR. And Dave? He showed up 15 minutes early every time, which wasn't good enough. I marked him absent. That meant he didn't get paid. This went on for about a week and a half until he got his paycheck $120 short. Dave emailed one of the main refs, let's call him John, to ask what happened. John told him, "You weren't there, so no pay." Emails flew between me, John, and Dave. Once the full story came out, Dave was fired for making up rules. I got paid for that first game after all. Take that, Dave. Actually, don't take advantage of anyone. Not just young people. I've never worked at any sports-related job ever, so I'm not really sure how these things should work, but just some advice for the younger guys here. If you ever feel like someone's screwing you over, you can clarify rules and policies with guys higher in the chain of command. Time is money. Don't let anyone take either from you. Post 4. Next up, a story from Scary Expert 1929. Punishing me for underperforming for 1 day in 2 years? No problem. Hello everyone. I'll try to be concise. I work at a company where I handle mid to high-level complaints. Managers, PR, and legal. My daily requirement is 40 cases. Some of my team struggle with that, but I don't. And I don't stop at 40 either. I've handled 50 to 55 cases basically every day for the past 2 years. There's no bonus or even recognition for doing that. I just did it because I felt a friendly obligation to the company. Complaints can be a 5-minute resolution or a 2-hour Zoom call with our New York lawyers. It's a gamble, really. Recently, I had a day where I felt a bit sick. At the same time, I got stuck with only hard cases that required more time. I ended up with 39 cases, just under the requirement. I thought nothing of it. My weekly average was still way off the charts, 50 plus as usual. The very next day, I felt better and went back to my usual high numbers. Come Monday, I had an emergency one-on-one with my manager. I was informed I had to attend a 3-day workshop on how to best meet requirements because I underperformed last week. My jaw dropped. I asked, "Don't you count weekly, monthly, or yearly numbers?" I was told, "The daily requirement is 40. This is standard practice. Nothing we can do." It was basically a workshop for underperformers who only handled 20 to 30 cases daily. It wasn't difficult, but I had to drive there for 3 days after work and listen to HR people giving me bad advice, since they'd never actually handled a case in real life. And I had to talk about what I would do to improve my numbers and reach the 40, as they call that in HR nonsense. This cost me hours and hours of free time, and I was livid. After it was over, I had a long think. I decided I would do exactly that. I'd reach the 40, and that's it. For the past few months, I've gone into work, handled 40 cases, my daily requirement, and then done nothing for the rest of my shift. I've had multiple one-on-ones with my manager during this time. I'm constantly asked, "Is something wrong?" I naively reply, "No. Am I in trouble? Am I underperforming?" And of course they say I'm 100% within daily requirements. That shuts the conversation down. This is real life, so I can't really drop a clever comeback, but I do keep playing the fool who has no idea what's wrong now, and I take satisfaction in knowing they got used to my overachieving, and now they're suffering from the lack of it. Before Easter, they posted an internal ad to promote 2 more managers. My guess? That's how many extra people they now need to pay, just because they lost me as an overachiever, and they lost me for no other reason than their own stupidity. I'm actually surprised he stuck around for that long with how well he was doing. He was clearly one of the better performing employees, and I'd say he had a lot of leverage to ask for more than he was getting. In a strange way, his story actually reminds me of the Iliad, where Achilles refusing to fight causes defeat after defeat for the Greek army. I mean, if it happened 5,000 years ago, it sure as heck will still happen today. Some things just don't change, huh? Post 5. The next post is from Prestigious Promise 20. She thought I was working that day. I was, just not at the store. This one's a bit of a complicated story. It's going to be a long TLDR at the end. In the early years of being a pharmacist, jobs in my city were hard to find. I managed to get full-time hours by working for two pharmacist friends, each at their own store. They coordinate my schedule and put an X next to my name on days I was working at the other store. One store was downtown, and the other was in the suburb where I lived. At the suburb pharmacy, I had a coworker, let's call her D, who just couldn't wrap her head around the fact that if there was an X by my name, I was working. Just not at that store. Multiple times, I'd get call after call on my cell phone and hang-ups on my phone answering machine because she'd wanted me to cover her shift at the suburb store, even though I was already working downtown. The worst part, my cell phone charged me for every single call, so after the second time she pulled this, I'd get downtown and immediately take the battery out of my phone. That made her mad at me for ignoring her, and we had a tepid relationship after that. Time went on, and the suburb store started expanding their nursing home operation, so I ended up working there full-time. I still had a great relationship with the downtown store, and they had me keep the keys in case of emergencies. Occasionally, something would come up, and the X would go on the schedule by my name. Unfortunately, Dee became the assistant manager, and now thought she was the boss of me. Around this time, the downtown pharmacist's daughter was getting married, and the suburb pharmacist was inviting me to all the festivities. I was scheduled to work for the Thursday before at the downtown store. The X went by my name on the suburb store schedule. I was also going to the wedding. I was good friends with the daughter. But I'd be missing the Mendy party on Thursday since I was working for her mom. During break, I was on the phone with her. She said she was sorry I'd missed the Mendy. I told her, don't worry, I'll just doodle brown Sharpie all over my hands and pretend I was there when we're not busy. That same week, we were getting new pharmacy software installed. Nursing homes run on a batch system, labels are printed 5 days in advance, bubble packs are made during that time, and billing is done Thursday for meds delivered Friday. Dee decided she didn't want the batch done ahead of time. She wanted everything to be processed and made on Thursday. Just for this week, my technician was freaking out. I told her to make up the usual drug cards: Lipitor, Aspirin 81, multivitamins, Altesi without patient data, just to speed things along. Dee overheard and told the tech she wasn't allowed to do that. She said, the younger generation is just scared of her hard work. I panicked a bit, because I was the only Gen X worker. All my coworkers were boomer-aged or older. I checked the schedule. Yup, there was an X by my name. I wouldn't be there for the chaos, but somehow Dee thought I was? Why should I correct her? Thursday rolls around. At 12:30, my cell phone starts blowing up. It was in my purse locked in the safe, since I don't get a lunch break as the only pharmacist, and everyone could hear it ringing. Out comes the battery. I got home after work, and there was yelling and swearing on my answering machine. A locum pharmacist had worked the morning shift, wasn't giving any instructions, and left everything for Dee when she arrived at 12:30. She had to work late to finish over 500 prescription drug cards. I came in the next day, and she was still furious. You said you were working. I heard you talking about the Mendy thing. I told her I was working, just not at that store. The X next to my name made that clear. That's when I learned she could eavesdrop on the break room from a certain spot in the pharmacy, while she was the only pharmacist working. And after that, I took all my breaks in my car. TLDR, a coworker tried to make the day absolute chaos by dumping 5 days of work on me, on a day I wasn't even working, so she had to do it herself. I mean, it's kind of weird that it had to escalate all the way to that. I'm curious to know why she never really understood what the X was supposed to mean. Sounds to me like she never really wanted to wrap her head around it and needed an excuse to lash out for not doing work she was otherwise supposed to do. There's an intergenerational conflict going on too, with OP being a young Gen Xer at the time, having to deal with boomer coworkers. And one in particular who was just a notch above the rest. Ah, crappy boomers. A common plague back then, and even to this day. Post 6. The next story is from vague, ambiguous name. Boss took credit for my work. Malicious compliance occurred. A few years ago, I was hired as a manager to create the contracts department at a tech startup. My boss was on the opposite coast, and we barely spoke. About a year in, the company hired consultants to overhaul every department except contracts, because it was running so smoothly. I was truly proud of that. The company even sent me a paid trip to the Bahamas as a thank you. After I got back from vacation, I asked for a raise to director level. My boss said I just wasn't there. I asked him for a list of what I'd need to do to be promoted to director. He sent me a list, everything I was already doing, and basically admitted that if I were promoted, he wouldn't be able to take credit for my work anymore. Friends told me I needed to either leave or just put up and shut up. Instead, I chose to kill with kindness. I sincerely apologized to my manager for overstepping and told him I'd step back into the manager role. I even printed out the manager responsibilities and posted them at my desk. Things went downhill faster than I could have imagined. We started missing sales targets. The product team said my boss had agreed to a term in a contract that would completely destroy their budget and product rollout. My boss didn't know how commission agreements worked. He let sales manipulate contracts, so we ended up paying commission on contracts that had termination clauses. I only stepped in once to stop a contract amendment from being approved because my boss was unknowingly letting a VP artificially inflate sales numbers. The controller and CFO had to get involved. Eventually, the CEO was called in. Stories started going around about my boss holding stress balls and cussing in meetings. Meanwhile, I was more relaxed than ever. During all my new free time at work, I studied for and earned professional certifications. I also started leaving work early to hit the gym before it got crowded. About a month after I gave up my added responsibilities, my boss gave me a 7% bonus. He didn't say it out loud, but it was clear he wanted me to take on the director responsibilities again, just without the title. I continued to follow the manager job description to a T. 6 months later, I took 10 days off with my unlimited PTO. I was included in the layoffs. I took 3 months off, then landed another job with a 35% salary increase. While I'm happy to be making more money, I truly love the company and the people I worked with. It's disheartening to watch someone continually take credit for your work. It's rare having someone work for a company they actually love working with. Of all the things to ruin it, it had to be a credit-grabbing boss who thought he was too big for his own boots. Talent is rare, and you don't want to be the guy who lost a person who could give you everything you wanted just because of your own ineptitude. It's good to be humbled every now and then, especially as a boss. Hubris doth destroy an empire. Thanks for watching Tommy Threads. If you enjoyed these workplace revenge stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your favorite story in the comments. Be seeing you later.